It was tough and I had a lot of interest bills and I was like, hey, I need to figure out how I'm going to feed my family. I remember borrowing some money from my parents at one stage to keep things afloat.
I recently recorded a podcast about my business journey going from startup to a $30 million plus business. And it made me realize I've done 240 episodes on this podcast telling you how to grow your business, but I've never really told you the story of how I've grown mine. So today I'm switching things up a bit and we're playing that clip for you with Josh as the host and me in the hot seat. Enjoy.
Tony Fraser-Jones, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Josh. Good to be here, buddy.
So for people who don't know anything about Profitable Tradie, when you're asked to describe your business, what do you say?
Well, basically Profitable Tradie, our mission is to help tradespeople and contractors create the life and the business they never knew possible. And so that means people come to us because they've got problems and they want their problems fixed, but our job is to really do that, but to help them understand that business is a vehicle for, an amazing life. And so it's teaching people and helping them understand they can make a $1 million profit in their business, not just $1 million in revenue, and create a business that they don't have to work in all the time. So that's kind of the aspiration, and we do that by coaching, business coaching, and it's it's all the stuff about running a great business, pricing, marketing, sales, team, leadership, all that stuff. Because what we find is that the people we help, they're fantastic at doing projects. But they probably struggle a little bit with actually how to run a business, and they tend to just try and work harder with, the work out in the field, which is not the path you want to grow a great business. That's part of it, but you've got to do the other bit as well. So that's what we do.
What industries are you working within?
Yeah, so broadly speaking, it's trade businesses and contractors. So that's plumbers, electricians, painters, glazers, tilers, those kind of businesses. We don't actually work with building contractors as such, so it's kind of the sub-trades, if you like. Or home service businesses. If you've got a problem at home with your power or your water, then you'd call the clients that we help.
Okay, so most business coaching businesses are one-man bands, but you've got a few more than just a one-man band on your team. How many staff have you got on your team now?
So I don't know the exact number, honestly, but it's between 70 and 80. So it's not a small operation, and we've got people, through New Zealand, Australia, the Philippines, Bali, the US, Canada, I think Venezuela team. So we've got a team all over the show, which is pretty cool.
And where are most of them based?
That's a great question. There's probably about 15 or 20 odd who are based in New Zealand, and probably 15 in the office, another 5 or so in New Zealand. The rest of them are overseas. So there's some in Australia. I don't know the exact numbers. There's a bunch in the US and Canada as well. That's an important market for us. And we do have some help from people in the Philippines as well. They're amazing. So I'm really blessed to be able to tap into that labour market.
So that is a sizable business compared with your average business coaching. Where is your annual revenue sitting?
Yep. So it's around about 30 million. Well, that's what it has been the last financial year. But as it's like a high growth business, so we tend to sort of focus on what our run rate is. So at the start of the year, it's lower, and obviously at the higher, it's at the end of the year. So at the moment, we're on a run rate of sort of 35 mil plus. So, it's going well.
That's very exciting. What has the growth been like over the last couple of years?
Yep. So it's a great question. I think the last 2 years we've grown about 133%. So a lot, and a lot of growth from sort of 24 to 25. That was about 68%, and then another 38% from 25 to 26 financial year. So it's been stonking along.
It sure has. So you said you got a lot of customers overseas. What
Yep.
percentage of your revenue is from overseas?
Yeah, 80%. Yeah, so 20% here, 80% overseas. And it's split. So we've got, say, 20% here in NZ. Australia's our biggest market at the moment, and so that's just over 50% of our revenue. And then the US and Canada. So Canada's about 11%, and the US is about 17%. So that's exciting. Obviously, this massive upside in North America for us, and we're really working hard and excited about helping more people there. So you crack that sort of 350 million person market, it's kind of mind-boggling.
It is huge over there.
Crazy, yeah, crazy.
So you've gone on this crazy journey from where most business coaches are one-man bands, and you've grown this enormous company. What triggered that change?
It's a great question. Probably madness to start with. I think I've had a number of businesses, and I worked as a consultant for a company called Accenture, which are a large technology consulting firm when I left university. So I did that. I owned a business. It's a burger restaurant, actually, of all things. I did property development and property investing and worked with a lot of tradespeople there. During the global financial crisis, I think it was 2008, was it? That was the big meltdown, subprime mortgage explosion, etc. My property business sort of struggled, to be honest. It was tough, and I had a lot of interest bills. And I was like, hey, I need to figure out how I'm going to feed my family. I had a couple of young kids. It was super stressful. I remember borrowing some money from my parents at one stage to keep things afloat. And I went to a couple of business coaching seminars. It's like, hey, I'd really like to do that. And I remember my wife, Bronwyn, and my mum at the time saying, hey, you should do that because that's, that'd be great for you because it's about business, it's about helping people, and it's about personal development. I really like those things. So I kicked off, doing it one-on-one and mainly with tradespeople because that's who I'd helped. And I did that for a number of years successfully. I had $300,000 or $400,000 worth of revenue, which is pretty good going on your own. And I was like, hey, I'd really like to build a business here, and I'd like to help more people. And so I got involved with a coach. Coach always needs a coach. If you're looking for a coach who doesn't have a coach, don't use them as a coach. So that's a problem. And this particular person, Taki Moore's his name, had a group coaching business. And so instead of coaching one-on-one, you could coach one-to-many using technology. So we're lucky we live where we are now because you can do a webinar or do training materials that lots of people can access at once. And so that's how it sort of started. I was like, well, let's have a crack at this. And we started working with plumbers in New Zealand. And I thought, this is cool. So we got some clients, started to run some webinars, build some training videos that they could access, put a community group together where they could get help from each other as well. And I was like, there's not many plumbers in New Zealand. Like it's such a small market. Probably a couple of thousand businesses that we could potentially help. And so I was like, well, electricians are the same business, so let's add them. And there was a few other trades that we added. And it was called Plumbers Coach to start with. We turned it into Profitable Tradie because that sounded good. And then we're like, still a small market. Lots of people get help in Australia, and that's, we went into Australia, and then same sort of concept moving into North America. But we needed to hire some people, obviously, to do that. Yeah.
And what a ride.
It's been crazy, yeah. It's you don't realise it at the time, but you look back. It's really good to look back sometimes and see, well, actually, we've done all these cool things. I don't know. It doesn't matter if you're successful. You still feel a bit dumb in business. I don't know if you find that you're like, but you must have learned some stuff, on your journey if you've got to certain steps. So I think for all business owners, it's good to look back and celebrate those wins and the learnings because it's a tough gig.
It can be. So what would be, when you look back, what would be some of those pivotal moments or those key decisions that really shifted the trajectory for you?
Yeah. I think the first one is understanding that I really like business and I wanted to build a business. And how could I actually do that? When I used to actually sit down with people weekly or fortnightly, one-to-one, and talk with them, it's like that's very hard to multiply or to leverage. So I was like, number one is I exposed myself to some learning and I was like, oh, there's a concept that could work here. And so I think something that I've probably done well is when I see other people doing stuff, I'm like, wow, they can do that, so I should be able to do that. Let's give it a crack. And that's not easy for some people. I don't know, that's the way I'm wired. And we have to coach a lot of our clients through that process as well. So that was the first thing. The second thing was understanding that geography is no boundary today with technology. This is massive. Your market is the niche you target. And having a niche is absolutely critical. So that niche is global. And for us, plumbers, electricians, and similar businesses, they're pretty much the same everywhere. Now, there are some small differences, and there's some differences in culture and stuff that you need to understand, but the problems are basically the same. So we market to the niche, which means our market is so much bigger, and you need to have a market that has some size to it, because otherwise it's just very hard to scale. And that's why a lot of New Zealand businesses struggle. It's a small market. And so you can crush it here and have 25%, 30%, 50% of the market. You're still a small business. But in the States, obviously, you can have a small slice of a big market and it's a much bigger operation. So I think those are a couple of really key moments. And probably the next one is a couple of key hires. And so the first one was, I hired a person when I was working out of my house in the garage at the back, which was interesting. But the first key hire was a marketing grad, Damon, that I hired, and he was just better than anyone else I'd hired. And he could do stuff that other people couldn't do, and he's done coaching, he's done sales, he's done marketing, he's done everything. He's still with us 11 years later. So that sort of helped me understand that there's good people out there. And then I hired another guy who's now he's a business partner, actually. He's a minority shareholding, Phil. He's the COO. And so I really started, once I got him on board, he did sales. And that freed up so much time. Because when you're doing a lot of sales, it's hard work. Don't tell the salespeople I said that, But it is, and it's emotional work, and it's high energy work. And so if you're doing a lot of sales, it takes a lot of your effort, and it's hard to put that into other areas of growth. And so Phil picked that up, and then he just picked more and more up and kind of pushed me sideways from stuff. And I was like, wow, other people can do stuff. And that sort of started to snowball.
Well, that's an interesting journey in that leadership growth along the way, where you actually find that you're not doing the things that you thought it was critical that you did. What have been some of those changes for you where you thought, I'm the only person who can do this, and now you realize you've been able to hand it off to somebody else?
It's a great question because this is the question for all business owners. And I'm lucky in a way, or maybe it's I'm lazy, I don't know. But I have been able to delegate to people and let them have a crack. And maybe I got lucky at the start because I hired a couple of decent people, and so I could see the value in it. So that made a big difference. But the challenge is once you get good people, they start pushing you as well, and they're like, hey, why are you doing that? Like, I can do that. And you give them a crack, and it's like, wow, actually they can do that. So I guess it's I had a bit of a mindset for it. I mean, I'm still a bit of a control freak, and any entrepreneur, honestly, is a control freak because they wouldn't grow a business if they weren't. You have to have that kind of that streak in you, but it's recognizing it and pulling back from it. And I guess I've had some experience, and then my confidence is just built by continually letting those people have a little bit more, responsibility. And now the journey is, I'm a long way down the journey because I try not to do anything. Honestly, really try not to do anything or make any decisions, the smallest amount of decisions possible. Because if you still make the decisions, then you're robbing the people in your team of the opportunity to really do that heavy lifting, because the decisions are the heavy lifting. That's the hard stuff. And so, for example, we have a CRM, we use HubSpot. Now it's not perfect, and I don't even know how to use it, to be honest. I don't use it at all. But we'd been looking at CRMs for ages, and I was involved in the process, and eventually I was just hopeless, and Phil was like, talk to the rest of the team, and they made the decision and made it happen, because if they were waiting for me, I just was never getting to it. Like you were blocked with all this other stuff. And so that sort of stuff happens a lot now. It's like, hey, we've got a problem. Well, they come with solutions. I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. I don't even really look into it, because if I did, nothing would ever happen. And so it's getting yourself out of the decision process. And really it's about, for me, the leadership now is finding the right people, hiring the right people. Not me, I don't do the hiring. You've got to get other people to do the hiring, but building a system, the key people do the hiring, and then building a culture so those people can do a great job. That's kind of the full circle for me.
So you're delegating not just tasks. Some leaders delegate tasks.
Yeah.
You're delegating responsibility and authority.
And outcomes. Outcomes is the key. You delegate outcomes. That's absolutely massive. I don't want to have to do the thinking for you to do your job. What's the point of hiring you? We're paying people good money, and they deserve it. And so I'd rather pay more and get somebody who can make those decisions. And one of the key things that we do every week is our managers meeting, and each head of sales, head of marketing, head of coaching, head of admin, ops, they have to bring their results for the week and present them to us. And that's how we keep control of it. It's like, well, we can see what's working, what's not. Let's drill down on that. Let's have an explanation of this. What are you doing about it? And they've really taken ownership of that. I don't want to be in that stuff meddling with it, because if you'll grow to a certain point for sure, and maybe it's 3 or 4 million in revenue, but you can't go past that if you're always having to touch the decisions. It just doesn't work. Well, not in my experience anyway. Maybe there's other people who can. Maybe I'm lazy, I don't know, but that's my experience.
So you mentioned there that you've even delegated hiring. You don't hire anymore.
Nope.
What was it like the first time when somebody joined the team and you hadn't even made that decision?
Amazing. It's so good. Because this is a big inflection point in growth for business. What was happening was I was required in the process, but it would take 2 or 3 weeks to get into my calendar because there's all these other things. And so we're losing good people. I mean, if you want to be an employer of choice, you've got to be quick and action and really lock the deal in with the good people. And so we're like, hey, this is not working. You need to pull out of this. But we do have a great process. And so you set up process. these are the job ads we write. Here's the interview process. Here's the screening, the psychometric testing, all that stuff. So we set that up. The team actions that. And when you see a new person come on the team meeting that I've never met, it's like amazing. And then you see clients commenting on how cool this coach is, and you've never even met them or talked to them, more than a hello. That's a great feeling. That's tremendous. And so the business really grows when that happens because it frees up a bottleneck. Hiring becomes a bottleneck. And now we have a recruit. We actually have one recruiter. We're just hiring another recruiter because hiring the great talent, 70% of success, so you've really got to invest in it. The thing now is, if Phil's my COO, I've had to say to him the same way, bro, you've got to get out of some of this hiring. You're holding up the works now. So that as your business grows, it sort of goes down to the next level, and you keep pushing that responsibility down to people at the lowest level possible, which is cool because they love responsibility. Winners love responsibility.
So you've developed a system around the hiring.
Yep.
What have you built into that system that distinguishes a winner from someone who's just really good in an interview?
That's a great question. First thing I would say is we're not perfect and we don't always get it right, and that's the nature of things in business. First, it's every step of the process. Like, for example, we had some challenges getting the right people to coach as coaches. So we went through, I actually did this work and built an avatar of the successful coaches we had. So we took the top 10 coaches we've got and we rigorously interviewed their background, if you like, and figured out all the common points. So we built an avatar. We know what works. Now, does it mean they have to fit all those criteria? No, you can, So we built an ad that speaks to those people, and we question them based on the characteristics. We talk about our values a lot. That's massive. So to grow a great business for me is values are critical. We have 5 values, and so the interview process, a lot of it is about figuring out, do they fit our values? Results driven is one. Doesn't sound like much, but it's like total complete ownership on me. No blame of anyone else. Always looking to achieve. Love reporting results. Love winning. So you interrogate them with those questions. We have questions around behavior. We have questions, as a coach, we'll give them a situation and then give them some feedback and ask them to do it again. Well, that tests coachability. If they can't put in place what you said, it's difficult for them to be coached. Because for us, it's about fit. Will they enjoy it? That's critical, and will they go well? So lots of steps in the process. Yeah.
And so out of that, you've built the system that enables you to pick those winners, not just the people who show up well.
Yep.
And then you're delegating the responsibility down through the levels so that even Phil might not be involved in the hiring process.
Definitely not. He's not involved in hiring coaches anymore because that's the department head and his leaders are involved in that. And even the department head's not involved in some of that now because the process is good and the key leaders know what needs to happen, because hiring takes a massive amount of time. And any high growth business knows this. And if you can't get enough talent quickly, your business stalls. And what we've found, I think this is a big lesson in business, whether it's exporting or whatever business, is you have to have capacity to grow. And capacity is about people. People is massive. So if you haven't got the capacity to hire people, that means you won't have the capacity to grow the business. For example, when we hire new people, I was just talking to a marketing team. We run a podcast as well, Profitable Tradie podcast. Jump on, it's good. We're looking at getting a full-time podcast person, marketing, all that sort of stuff, instead of someone who does that as part of their job. And so if we did that, I'm sure our podcast would grow more than it has. So it's that sort of thing.
Quick one. This matters. Maybe revenue's up, but you still can't pay yourself properly. Maybe you're winning work, but not making money on it. Now, if you run a plumbing, electrical, HVAC, or a similar business, my book, Built to Run, it's the fix. Now, it's a practical 7-step guide to a high-profit business that doesn't depend on you. And it's live right now. Now, for the first 3 days, you can grab it at the special launch price. After that, the deal's gone. Now, the link's in the show notes.
You said that right in the interview process or the job advert, you're talking about your values.
Yeah.
Where else do you build your values in so that they're not just on a wall, but they actually mean something?
Just everywhere. They're talked about at every interview, and people probably get sick of it. I don't care because it's so important. Our performance reviews, there's always a section on values. At our team meeting, our all-hands meeting every week, it's virtual, obviously, because we're around the world, is everyone has to do an appreciation. One person they appreciate, what was the value this person demonstrated? It's like, so I really appreciate Josh's help with this problem last week. That was a great experience, or it was world class. And so we tagged the value. And then we add up who's getting Like we have values awards at the end of the year. We add them all up and say, well, Josh got 137 appreciations this week, and he was the top person for, results driven this year. So so it's that. If we have a performance conversation, it's not about, you did this wrong. It's like, hey, these are the values, and this behavior is not living up to our values. So that's important. It's part of the lexicon of what we do now. We'll be chatting like, hey, bro, that's not world class, or that's a great result, chief. So it's just woven in. I mean, all the team meetings that the different departments have, that they replicate what we do in the all hands meeting. So it's very deep in the business.
I love that. That's so much more meaningful than just values on a wall.
People get very suspicious or cynical of that, don't they? And it's quite corporate, but it's what makes the difference, and it creates the culture and helps you be an employer of choice. Now, what amazing, and David, our recruitment talent acquisition specialist, he was like, I never have people saying no to working here. Like, this is unheard of, in other jobs and other businesses he's run or been involved with. It's like you offer someone a job, then you got to actually do the sales job of getting them to say yes. I can't remember the last time we had someone say no. And it's because of the process and the culture. And the last thing is the work we do is really meaningful for people. So actually changing people's lives, helping them create a great business, great life, which affects their family, their kids, their husband, wife, etc., the community. So I think people really like that. It feels good, and it's something I feel good about as well. So I think that helps too. Purpose, yeah, and winning. Like, winners love to win. So high growth business, getting results for clients. The people are like, yeah, man, I'm winning. I can tick that off. It's like a sports team. If you're not winning, it's not generally that happy.
So culture is so essential, especially for a growing business. What are the challenges that you've found with maintaining a high performance culture or a strong team culture as you've grown from one-man band up to 80 odd people?
The big lesson I've had in probably the last 18 months is, because I think it dipped a little bit, is that as you grow, you have to put exponentially more effort into culture to even maintain the culture you have, let alone improve it, because the communication channels are so much more complex. Like the exponentially more channels, because there's all the connections between the various people. So understanding that's important. So it's creating it as a higher priority. The next thing is you've got to measure it. Like it has to have some metrics, and so we have a couple of metrics that really help here. One is a monthly ENPS survey, which is NPS is like, are you going to refer people? So you just ask your team once a month, how likely are you to refer a friend or associate to work here? 1 to 10. And obviously 9 or 10 are actively referring. They're really positive. 7 or 8 kind of bit lukewarm. 6, you got a problem. And so we use that as a temperature check. And that's part of my COO's KPIs and part of his department head's KPIs as well, because we can sort it out by, it's got to be anonymous, but we're so big, doing it by department, it's like it's anonymous, you don't know. So we do that monthly, and then quarterly we do what's called a Gallup Q12. And this is not something we invented, but it's Gallup has a Q12 survey, which is about employee engagement. It's 12 empirically based questions about engagement, and then it's got thousands of businesses doing it around the world, and so you can benchmark where you sit, which is pretty cool. Because I love to see where we're sitting, and so we do that, and our KPI is to be in the top 25% of businesses, which we have been consistently. We had a bit of a dip, which is, we're like, okay, shivers, we really need to lift our game here. And so we lifted our game in a few ways. Number one is more communication, more effort helping our managers understand culture, and setting up, forums for not just our heads of department, but our mid-level managers, so we can really nurture them as leaders. So that's important. And then one of the things we did was take our values, which, for example, one of them is honesty and integrity. Now, okay, it sounds pretty simple, but we've actually gone through and written down 8 or 10, what does this look like in practice? And 8 or 10 things of what it doesn't look like in practice, so that the leaders really understand what it means. So one of the things, which is in a sense, a fireable offence, how it doesn't look is, hey, not speaking up when you've got a problem or concern about something or someone. That's written down, like just keeping quiet. That's bad. Okay, it's hard not to speak up, but if you're not doing it, that's weak. You've got to do that. That's, so you specify what those values mean. So I think that's made a big difference. And then we do virtual social events. We do, live social events. We put a lot of effort into that stuff. But even just the weekly team meeting, that all hands meetings, there's great energy in that. People like coming to it. They like connecting, because in a virtual world there's a lack of connection. So I think that's powerful. But just make it a priority is the key thing.
Well, I like the fact that not only are you putting effort in, but you've got those aspects of how to measure it, which allows you to say we had a bit of a dip, we put extra effort in, we're now seeing it lift. That's incredible.
Yeah, and like with one of the things we found with the strategy team, with the Q12 is like they were not getting enough praise and recognition that came through in the Q12, which I'm rubbish at, and Phil probably struggles a bit with as well. So we're like, hey, we've got to do a better job with actually saying that's a great job. Because as an entrepreneur and a business owner, we tend to be good at focusing on the future, figuring out what the problems are, what the challenges are, and working on those instead of saying, hey, this was amazing. Like, you've done a great job here, because everyone needs that.
So that type of measurement is certainly something you didn't start with and you've grown into along the way. I'm interested, what other aspects of your leadership has had to grow and change as the business has grown?
It's a good question. I think you become more people and culture focused. So you've got to let go of wanting to get stuff done or feeling like you've achieved stuff. It's quite nice to write an email or do a little bit of code or something and just, I can own that. And the same with our members who are tradespeople and contractors. They love to go and build something or knock something out, but it's not often what their business needs. And so I've had to figure out and learn that my influence is a lot more indirect. And actually just walking around and chatting to people and just dropping in and kind of just picking up the gold nuggets, which you do when you're talking with people. You're like, oh, okay, I kind of see what's going on here. You've got to be a lot more comfortable with that. So I think that's been really important. The next thing is understanding that the key to success is who, not how. So if you've got a problem, if you can't do something or someone can't do something, don't figure out how to do it. You're probably not the right person. And it's going to take a lot of energy, so figure out someone else to do it. And that's happened to me a lot. Phil's really good at that. He's like, hey, bro, you've got this started. Because I'm a quick start on the ideas. I've got lots of great ideas. Sometimes I struggle to finish. And he's like, well, just get someone else to do that. So that's important. And I think the next thing is, obviously measurement is important. You've got to measure where things are at. So you have to have your finger on the pulse. And too many businesses get out of control because they have no way of understanding whether they're winning or not. Well, they might see it 6 months down the track. So we know every week where our sales are at, what our leads are costing, where our AR is at, what our engagement from our clients are at, how many clients are offboarding, how many clients are struggling. Like we know all that stuff, so we've got a good handle on what's happening. We don't always know how to fix it. That's another whole story, right? But you have to know what it is to be able to fix it. So I think those are some things that have helped massively. And for me, I've probably transitioned a little bit from, and maybe it's an age and stage thing because I'm 52, and I've been quite deliberate in getting younger people in the business because I think as you get a little older, your energy changes. For me, it has anyway. And you start to think about life in a different way. Your parents get older, they're going to pass away soon. Your kids are getting older. And so I've been able to harness that really vibrant energy of some of the younger managers, and they really drive stuff. And I can be more like I'd say the wise sage. They may not say that. They might laugh at them. I say grumpy old bugger. I don't know, but I hope that's okay in the pod. But letting them really do stuff, even though sometimes I'm like, I'm not sure about that, and letting them make mistakes. I think that's important because if they don't make mistakes, they're not learning anything. If you always jump in and save them, then sometimes these are expensive things that happen. Sometimes they're strategic things, and you're like, I wasn't sure about that.
Give me an example of something that was an expensive mistake that you could have avoided, but actually you were letting somebody else take the responsibility and make that decision.
An example, we run live events. I think that's very important in today's world. So we get our members together physically, both in Australia, New Zealand, and in the US and Canada. And this year we've had events. We find the best place to have those events is in the high population areas. So that's east coast of Australia. But we ran an event in Central Australia in Adelaide. I wasn't involved in that process at all. And when I found out it was in Adelaide, I was like, I'm not sure about that. Like, that's a bit off, and we just didn't get as many people to that event. Yeah, we got probably 50, 60 less people, which is a problem for us because they're high point events and they really help people with their journey. So there'll be some people who haven't had that experience. So that's an example, but I didn't have to be involved in the process, and we've all learned from that. And I'm fine with it. In fact, I'm not grumpy. I mean, honestly, my weakness is sometimes I'm a little bit, I told you so. I'm right. That's my thing I need to work on. But that's an example of that sort of thing. But they made the decision, locked it in, and okay, you move on.
And allowing the team to have the responsibility and to make the mistakes and then recover from it afterwards.
100%. And it's not the end of the world. It's not like the biggest deal ever. But so I think you got to let them make the decisions. And that's why hiring the right people is critical. I'd rather they make a decision and it not be optimal than not make a decision and, kind of ask me for my opinion all the time. Because often they're in a better position to make the decision anyway because they've got all the facts, all the information. And I'm kind of like, I don't know, well, what do you think? Sometimes, obviously, as the owner, you know some stuff and the most experienced person, you can drop a bit of just a seed of wisdom in there and that can be helpful. But I think it's absolutely critical that people can make decisions because winners want to do that, right? That's what they want to do. And you as a business owner, we've always wanted to do that. So we kind of want to cultivate that business owner mentality in our team. So I think that's a massive part of success. It's so important.
That's really good advice there. So I'd like to switch the conversation now to talk about the growth. You've achieved enormous growth and you started in New Zealand and then looked to Australia and then expanding beyond. What's your process? How do you expand into a new market?
Great question. So it's really a marketing question. Well, we're so lucky today. I mean, if I was doing this 50 years ago or even 25 years ago, I probably couldn't. We've got technology, we've got the internet, and we've got Facebook. So, you can put ads anywhere you want. And effectively, the way we transitioned to geographies was to start running ads. So run Facebook ads in Australia, and we start to generate leads that way. It's that simple, yeah. And then, as we look to the US and Canada, we did the same.
So take me through the journey from someone who has never heard of Profitable Tradie to then ending up signing up with you guys as a monthly recurring customer. What does that journey look like?
So the first step is they'll see an ad typically, and there'll be some value or information or education in that. So it might be a lead magnet, it might be a calculator or a process to do something or a template or 7 ways to get some more jobs. And so they will surrender their email or phone number to get that. And on the back of that, there'll be a funnel, which will, not all the time, but often it'll offer them the opportunity to talk to someone about fixing their situation. And then they'll take them into our sales funnel. But obviously not everyone's going to do that at the start. And so you need to nurture, and that's very important. So our nurture system is email, retargeting, podcast is very powerful, a very powerful mechanism, as you know. And when we talk to our members, they're always like, wow, the podcast, I may have listened to every episode. I mean, this has blew my mind. And my kids and wife laugh at this. You go to an event and people want to get a selfie with you because you're a podcast host. What's that about? It's pretty odd. Or you write a book and they want you to sign it. It's like, okay. It was quite foreign to me, that sort of thing. But podcast and book, they create a lot of credibility. And so they nurture people and they can see that you're a real business. Case studies in the funnels and in the emails, testimonials, all that sort of thing is very powerful. And we also have an outbound team. So, telemarketing is pretty amazing. So we'll follow up people through our outbounding team. We're making 3,000 calls a week type thing.
Wow.
So that's a good way because sometimes people like to talk to someone as well. It's interesting. Our show up to our sales calls is much stronger from people who've had an interaction via an outbound call than it is, via an inbound lead through Facebook or Insta, which, it's kind of odd, but they've had a connection already. So that's kind of why.
I want to jump back to the podcast because last November you ticked over 200 episodes. It's incredible. And from a fan, as me, I love your podcast, even though I run a digital marketing agency, not a tradie business. I find
And you've been a very good guest as well.
I have. I find your podcast, the content is outstanding, like the stuff we talked about today with leadership growth and just general business advice. It's one of my favorite business podcasts. So that is a sizable commitment to get to 200 episodes and beyond. But you're saying that a lot of the people who are now inquiring have been listening to your podcast for free for a long time.
Yep. And people who are members, I mean, even the members get tremendous value out of the podcast. It's like, wow, we've got all these other cool trainings, but you really love the podcast. I just think people, number one, they know you're a real person. Number two, they get value. Value is important. And they don't feel alone. They know that you get them and you've got them. You get where they're at and you've got them. You can help them. So I think the podcast is just an incredible tool. And then also, it's a great way to create content, isn't it? Because you can slice and dice it. And I see clips coming up of myself on social. Like, where did that come from? Oh, it's the podcast. So it's a very powerful tool.
And especially since you are effectively selling knowledge or the coaching, the knowledge industry, then being an expert in that space with giving away knowledge for free.
Yeah, content is very helpful. But here's the interesting thing with coaching and is that people come for content. They think they need to learn stuff, but they actually stay for the coaching, which is accountability and the butt kicking and the community. Now, this is the secret sauce. This is the thing that's really powerful is we build a community of like-minded people who help each other. We've got 700 plus people in our community, and there's always someone who's solved the problem you've got. There's always someone further down the track who can help, and there's always people who are not as far down the track who you can help, and people love to help. So that's a very powerful mechanism that, if you're just coaching one-on-one, you don't get. It's something that we can add that one-on-one coaches just can't add because they don't have it.
Very true. So you're expanding into new countries by turning on ads, spending a fair bit on ads every month.
Yep.
What have you found to be the differences between, as you've expanded into other territories, especially America and Canada, what have you found to be the differences that you need to bring through in your marketing?
Yep. And we haven't completely cracked all of this yet. Our cost of acquisition is definitely higher, particularly in the US. Canada is not too bad. I think you really need to understand language is important. For example, the word tradie or tradesperson is not as ubiquitous in the US, particularly, and in Canada as it is in Australia and New Zealand. The word ute or servo or bloke or mate, they're not really words that are used in the US to the same extent. Now, there are pockets, and it's very hard to talk about the US as a homogenous market because it's like about 52 different countries, and even within states, it's very different. So that's something you learn as well. Very similar in Australia and New Zealand, a lot of difference in the US and Canada. And it's understanding the culture as well. In New Zealand, tall poppy's quite a thing. They think it's a thing in the States. In Canada, it's not so much. I love the States. Now, our members in the States are amazing. They're so aspirational and so keen to crack on and do stuff, and a little bit less inhibited, perhaps, than we are in Australia and New Zealand. So it's understanding that aspiration's important, that playing a big game is important, that social media with you outside your corporate jet and your Ferrari is actually really powerful. It's maybe slightly different in Australia and New Zealand. People are a little bit more skeptical, or like, don't be a clown, like what are you showing off for? It's understanding that the US was based on the American dream, the white picket fence and an amazing life, which is very powerful. It's set up, to escape the tyranny of the king and the tax and all that sort of stuff. So that's woven into the culture. So you have to really get into the culture, and that means getting people on the ground, and we've got people on the ground for sales and coaching and getting some marketing help as well. So I think you really do need to understand it and spend a bit of time there as well is very helpful too.
So from a sales point of view and even a coaching point of view, I imagine for someone in America, it's a bit more comforting to have an American accent on the end of the phone as opposed to a New Zealand accent?
Yeah, I don't know 100%. I mean, there's a angle to be run that you could say, hey, we're a worldwide coaching business. We got coach people everywhere, so we know stuff that's not even heard of in the States yet. So you could take you need to take a position in the States, I guess, because the market there is more developed. There's a lot more self-help, coaching. It's way more saturated, so they see a lot more stuff. So you've got to be a bit better, I guess, is what I'm saying, to get the cut through. But it's definitely helped us having salespeople in the US, because the time zone's important, and the availability. If you want to get people, speed to lead is critical. So if you're kind of mashing the time zone, you've only got half availability with the crossover, then that's a problem. So we've found that's really helped. Obviously, for actually service delivery, people on the ground's massive. You can run marketing a little bit more globally, but you still need that local knowledge. But I think, like, our clients don't mind we come from New Zealand. We have like a team of, I think, 5 or 6 coaches in the States anyway, so they're involved. So I don't think that's a problem necessarily if you understand the environment. It's even things like, the US is a very God-fearing country. So people talk about spirituality and stuff really openly. And our guest speakers we have there are always talking about that. Well, you'd never find that in New Zealand and Australia now. And so it's just understanding that sort of stuff. God and country is very important. We don't talk about that in Australia and New Zealand anymore, which is a shame, but it's the reality.
What other challenges have you found with moving from a New Zealand-focused business to now Australia and international? What have you found along that expansion?
I think that the hardest thing, again, has been people. So I think initially we got people, but they weren't the quality that we needed, and I think we probably satisfied with the people we got. And it's understanding also that you need to pay in the currency that people are employed in. You can't be thinking, well, I'm paying someone 100 grand Australian or 100 grand US. Wow, I convert that back to Australian, New Zealand money. It's so much money. It's like, well, that's what it is. Like, pay the money, get the person. So I think that's been very important. So now we've got very good at getting the right people, and that's made a huge difference. Other problems, I mean, honestly, the event costs in the States are pretty expensive, so you want to make sure your events are pretty good. The travel thing is it's a challenge. It's a good day and a bit to get there, and it's a day and a bit to get back, and there's time zones, and so you're a bit ropey for a few days when you come back, and that's hard on families and stuff. So you need to think that through. And so again, that's about people though. It's like, I used to do all the presenting. Phil did a lot of it. Now we have a person who we've employed as a lead presenter, and we have other people who can do some of that stuff. So we don't have to be at everything, and I'm not at all the events. So that's about building a business, I think, to manage that.
So we're in a world where there are so many things that are digital, and you've built a business that's based on Zoom calls, and you can be remote, and yet you're still saying that there's an aspect of being in person at an in-person event. What is that intangible aspect that happens at an in-person event?
It's a great question. I've thought a lot about this because it's been very tempting to go fully digital and virtual because it's cheap, and you can do it more. But the problem is the world is very virtual, and it's becoming very AI, and it's quite depersonalizing at times. And so I think personal connection is a very defensible position as a business, and I think it's the right thing to do because it's better for people, both for your clients, and there's a connection that happens with a room of 200 or 300 people who are having fun together, learning stuff together, building energy together, the confidence people get from just talking to each other in the hallway or at dinner or whatever it is. These little nuggets of information that just really inspire people. Hearing people on stage talking about their successes is incredibly powerful. And it's great for our team as well because, we'll get the coaching teams together. They really vibe. The clients connect with them more. So I think, there's a basic human need for connection. And I think those live events are a massive way to do that. And they're just a lot of fun, Like you get people out of their environment. And I think a big thing about change in life is you actually need a pattern interrupt. And so those live events are a real pattern interrupt. It's completely different. It breaks if they're virtual, they're at home or at their office and all the stuff's going on and they're tempted to go and do this or do that or help with that project or take this child to their sports practice or whatever. Just nick out for, 20 minutes or whatever. Well, you can't do that at a live event. You're there, you're doing it, completely focus on it for 2 or 3 days. And so very powerful. Now, they're not, they come with an investment, but I just think it's so worth it. Yeah.
So you give out a lot of advice at these events. Yep. I'm interested for you. Have you had any key piece of advice along the way that has really made a difference for you?
Yeah. If you're going to think, you might as well think big is something that I've found it was a great bit of advice. Look, it's the same time, and if you think big, you give the opportunity of creating something big. And it's a thing we think about with our members, because often they're limited by their ability to actually conceptualize what's possible. And you can never outperform what you believe is possible. So, for example, a lot of businesses don't believe it's possible to make $1 million in revenue, let alone $1 million in profit. Well, we'll get people in front of them who are doing, multiple millions of net profit, and they're like, "Wow, that's actually a thing. That's amazing." Think bigger. Why not? You might get halfway. It's a better result than you have now. So I think thinking big is really, really, really powerful.
What's an example from your life where you've really had to come up against a limiting belief and push through that in order to think bigger?
It's a great question. I'm not sure I have an answer off the top of my head. I think going into the US was definitely a bit of a mind bend for me. I was like, I don't really know that many people there. Well, what if we don't understand what's going on there? What if they don't want to listen to us? All those things went through my head. But at the end of the day, I knew a couple of other coaching businesses who had done something similar, and I was like, well, if they're doing it, why can't I do it? And so we just did. And I think that's the thing. I don't know if it's a piece of advice, but it's almost a mantra that I have. I like to find people who are successful and doing things I'm not doing or things that inspire me, and then I'm like, okay, if they can do it, then it must be able to be done, and I think I can do it. And so I think that's been a very helpful mindset to have as well. I had some great mentors along the way has helped as well. I think that's very important.
Well, that thinking bigger, I love that. And that's exactly why this podcast exists, because I do want to help New Zealand founders, New Zealand CEOs think bigger, especially when we look at the export market. So Tony, thank you so much for sharing your journey today. It is pretty amazing to think of an industry where most people are one-man band business coaches, and you've really scaled an enormous business beyond that. And it sounds like the growth isn't slowing down.
No, I think the best is yet to come, and I'm very excited about that. It's the sky's the limit, really. So just got to keep raising our game to conceptualize the result that is possible.
Brilliant. Well, Tony, if people want to get hold of you and get hold of Profitable Tradie, what's the best way?
Yep, website's the best way. So profitabletradie.com. Just jump on there, or you can search the podcast on Spotify. It's called the Profitable Tradie Podcast, or I think it's on Apple and all the other bits and pieces. So that's a good way to get in touch as well.
And as I said before, I really rate the podcast. I love it. So Tony, thank you very much for coming on the show today.
It's been fun. Appreciate it, man.
Congratulations on being part of a select group of savvy business owners who are taking their businesses to the next level. And to help you on your journey, don't forget to check out our show notes for a copy of our free book, The Profitable Tradie, and other valuable resources. Thanks for being a part of this special group, and we'll see you in the next episode of the Profitable Tradie Podcast.